Once in a Lifetime, Chapter 19. Jim closed the office at noon on Christmas Eve every year, but only 5 or 6 people showed up on this day anyway. Today it was three of the folks in the personal office, Anna and myself. After she and I exchanged gifts 15 minutes past 10 a.m., she decided to leave for the day. We shared our floor with a small printing company, but they had shut down for the whole week. The folks in the personal office left one by one, a few minutes apart. By 10:30, I was the only person on the premises. I took off 5 minutes later so I could drop off the gifts in my trunk of my car to Deborah, Gary, and a couple of church members. Madeline, Odette, and I had stopped exchanging gifts several years ago. Up until then, I had always given presents to them, their spouses, and their kids, not to mention other relatives and some of my neighbors. But when it finally got to be too much, I stopped. Besides, I did enough for everybody during the year. Deborah woke me up with a phone call right after dawn on Christmas morning. V, I know you don't plan on sitting in that apartment all by yourself today. The least you can do is come have dinner with us. I was so groggy, I had to slap the side of my head to get my bearings. I might, but I think I'll run over to the hospital and pay Ronald a visit first. I told him that I would give him a call today, but I'd rather see him in person. What time are you going? I thought I'd do it early in the day, hopefully before noon. Why? I can't wait to meet this man. Pick me up so I can go with you. Stefan can keep an eye on the turkey and the kids. Our guest won't arrive until this evening. Wouldn't you rather wait and meet him after the surgery? No, I want to meet this mystery man now, and it's about time. I didn't want to argue with my sister, so I agreed to pick her up. Unfortunately, when we got to the hospital, a stern faced nurse intercepted us before we could enter Ronald's room and told us he was not up to having company. But I'm his donor, I explained. It doesn't matter. The doctor says no visits, period. His sister and fiance came a little while ago and I couldn't let them in either. Deborah and I left. Before we made it to the elevator, she put her arm around my shoulder. Sis, what if he doesn't live long enough to have the transplant? I shuddered so hard I almost fell. Please don't say that. Don't even think it, I snapped. He has to live long enough. When Deborah and I got to her house, she tried to talk me into staying for dinner. But knowing that Ronald was not doing well, I was feeling pretty downhearted. All I wanted to do was go back home. I did go in and say hello to Stefan and the kids and to check out all the new decorations Deborah had purchased since my last visit. The food was ready, so I fixed a huge plate to take home. I called Judith the minute I got in my door. She had just come home from Jan's house. After she told me in great detail about the wonderful meal Jan had served, I told her I tried to visit Ronald a little while ago, but the nurse wouldn't let me in his room. What's going on? Nothing to worry about. It's just that he didn't sleep at all last night, so he was pretty exhausted this morning. That's just being cautious. Judith cleared her throat. My son just arrived last night. Would you like to come over and meet him? No. I didn't get much sleep myself last night, so I'm going to get rest. I understand. Well, do you want me to bring you a plate? Jan, let us take enough food to feed an army. I'll bring Paul with me so he can finally meet you. He's only going to stay until Saturday. He's going to be running around with his friends, and I'm sure you'll be busy with your family, so he might not get to meet you otherwise. You don't have to bring any food. My sister fixed me a huge place, but why don't you and your son come over? They arrived an hour later. Paul was a younger version of Ronald and just as charming. After the introduction, I waved him and Judith to my couch. They declined the coffee I offered. I sat in the wing chair facing them. I could tell from the way Paul was blinking and fidgeting that he was nervous. He said very little so far. Then all of a sudden he cleared his throat and words started flying out of his mouth like birds. Miss Vanessa, you don't know how happy I am that my mama and Uncle Ron met you. He can't stop talking about you, he said with his voice cracking. I thought that this was going to be the worst Christmas our family ever had, but you changed all that. Such a display of emotion startled me, especially coming from such a young man. I'm so glad I am able to help. It was a struggle for me to hold back my tears. I didn't want to get too emotional myself, so I abruptly changed the subject. How are things at school, Paul? Okay, I guess, he replied as he rolled his eyes. I was glad he looked more relaxed now. I'll be glad when I graduate, though. I'm thinking about staying on in D.C. and pursuing a few opportunities. Judith gently slapped his arm. We have just as many jobs for engineers out here, maybe even more. She snickered and gave me a wary look. One of the opportunities he's thinking about is pursuing is named Gale. My brother Gary is still pursuing those same kind of opportunities, I said. Paul liked to talk, so he dominated the conversation. He raved about everything from his cool professors to music and to Gale. I was glad when he asked for my permission to go into the kitchen to check his messages and return some calls. You can go to my bedroom down the hall and shut the door, I suggested. That way you can have more privacy. Okay. He gave me a wide-eyed grin and sprinted out of the room. Judith, thanks for coming over. I shifted in my seat and blinked at her. I've been meaning to tell you I'm glad Jan reconsidered her decision. There was a doubtful look on Judith's face, but she nodded. I am too, but I'm not getting my hopes up too high. Even after the surgery, Ronald may need a lot of care for quite a while. There is a chance that he may have other issues later. Dr. Thomas assured him that he might be able to function as normally as any other healthy man. The doctor could be right and he could not be right. My main concern is that Ronald might never be able to have a full relationship with a woman, which would mean no children. I know Jan wouldn't be able to accept that. I hope it doesn't come to that. Will he continue to stay with you when they release him? For the first week or two. His recovery period could be anywhere from 2 to 12 weeks. I have to return to work by the end of February, so if he needs more time care, I'll hire a nurse. Judith let out a long, weary sigh. I don't know if Jan will be able to hang in there that long. If she was willing to resume the relationship and she knows all the facts, why wouldn't she? Judith looked at me like I was crazy. If she couldn't hang in there the first time, how do we know she'll be able to do it this time? Let's give her the benefit of the doubt. I had to force myself to sound optimistic. I'm sure she really loves Ronald, and this whole episode just might make their love even stronger. As much as I was enjoying Judith and Paul's visit, I was glad when they left an hour later. I needed some time alone to reflect on everything that was happening. Knowing that Ronald wasn't feeling too well, I decided it probably wouldn't be a good idea to call him. But because I had told him I would and he told me he'd be looking forward to it, I called his cell phone. If he didn't answer, I could at least leave a voicemail so he'd know that I kept my promise. It was a good thing I did call. He answered on the first ring. Vanessa, I had almost given up on you. His voice was so loud and strong, I assumed he was doing much better now. I tried to visit you today, I said meekly. I heard. I'm sorry about that. I'm also sorry that things are moving so slowly. If I'm on pins and needles, I can't imagine how you must be feeling. Everything is going to be just fine. That's what it's that's what's important, so let's focus on that. I told Ronald about Judith's visit and what a wonderful impression his nephew had made on me. Paul's a great kid. I hope to have one like him someday. You will. An awkward moment of silence passed. I don't want to keep you from getting your rest, so I'll let you go for now. I'll call again soon. Judith gave me your cell phone number. Do you mind if I call you up from time to time? Since I'm going to be laid up for God knows how long, I'd like to have something interesting to look forward to. You can call me up as often as you want. I'd like that very much. I held my breath for a couple of seconds before I told him. In case you can't reach me on my cell, I'll give you my landline and work phone numbers too. Thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me. Ronald's last comment and the mysterious tone of his voice made my heart feel like it was about to turn upside down. My face got so hot I had to fan it. No other man had ever affected me this way. For the first time, I realized I wanted to be more to him than just a friend and kidney donor. However, despite how nice he was to me, I didn't want to presume anything about how he felt about me, and I was not about to initiate anything more serious and risk being disappointed or embarrassed. I plan to leave everything up to him. Like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Bye.